Dr. Drew, welcome back to the Duncan Trussell Family Hour podcast. We're trying this again. I ruined the last one, but you're kind enough to give me another shot.
It's such a privilege. I get a total benefit because we had one full conversation. No one else gets to hear it.
Yeah.
But now we'll have another one.
Yeah, it was a really good podcast.
It was a good one. Too bad no one will hear it.
I was sick with depression for a little bit after that because I lost it. Man, I just have to congratulate you and applaud you for that debate with Nancy Grace. That was amazing to watch.
Tell them your analogy with the
it was movie. Like watching Bilbo go into the cave with Smaug. That's what it felt like. She is really, man, it really is. Don't you think she's sort of don't you think there is a potential in this that it could like fly in her face in a way maybe she doesn't expect?
Yes, because this is a topic that people have very strong feelings about. And I know she thinks she's kind of just doing television. I mean, Nancy's actually a very sweet person. She was a prosecutor, as she'll remind you a million times. And I'm sure as a prosecutor, she probably ground people down in a way without sort of listening to their arguments the way she does now.
Yes.
She doesn't listen. She just sort of grinds.
Yes.
And that's probably what she did. And then she amplifies all that for television. So it seems like, what's the name of the dragon?
Smaug.
Smaug. So it seems like Smaug. But she is actually a delightful, sweet person. And I'm actually fearful that taking such a strong position that's kind of irrational and moralizing is so disconnected from the American public that you could get a big backlash.
It feels like that, and I think it's I used to. She's like a professional wrestler that people like to not like.
That's right.
And I get that, and I think that's when it comes to her sort of staunch attacks on child killers and all of that stuff. It's cool, whatever. It's fun to watch. I really enjoy her. I really do enjoy her show. This position that she's taking, it stops being cute because the position that she's taking is one that sends a lot of people to jail.
Right. Not only that, and impinges deeply on personal liberties for no good reason by supporting an irrational, weird law that we've had in place that I point out for you since 1937 when somebody in the government looked around and went, we got some bad people doing this bad drug. Well, who were those bad people? Well, they happened to be people with darker skin than the white folk.
Yeah.
And then they made that all illegal, and guess who we still send to jail? Black and brown people. That's who goes to jail for pot. And that just from a social standpoint, can't we all agree? Okay, you don't like pot, fine. From a social standpoint, can't we agree to do something about this?
Yeah, that's right. And that's why you getting into the fray with people like Nancy Grace is so important. And for you, it's a little risky. This is not a risk-free position
right, it's not
for
risky
you.
at all. Well, first of all, people don't understand my point of view. They don't. They think somehow I'm anti-pot or anti-legalization.
Right.
I'm not actually pro either. I'm pro human liberty. I'm pro the American system. I'm pro letting the people determine their laws. I don't think this is. If I had to have somebody press my face in the mirror and said, "Is it going to be good or bad?" I think it might end up being kind of not so good for people, but so I'll deal with it. My profession will deal with it. That's okay. Maybe it will end up being good. I don't know.
I just tweeted there's somebody I like a lot. Used to be a CNN reporter named Amber Lyon. She started a website called resetme.org, which is a pro-psychedelic website. And she just tweeted a study that came out showing that ODs on narcotics in Denver
are down. I know. I saw that too, and I thought, this could be the answer.
Yeah.
This could be the answer to the opiate epidemic and the chronic pain thing. I would much rather see people on a lot of pot than any of the pills that they're taking now, because the pill combo that they get on, the opiate and the benzodiazepine and the sleeping medicine, kills. Absolutely. But when patients die of drug use, that's how they die today. B, perpetuates their pain and they're disabled by it.
Yeah.
They're disabled by it. They're helpless. Pot, some people are on the couch so they smoke a lot of pot, but some people work just fine.
Well, one facet of marijuana that doesn't exist in the opiates is that if you overdose on marijuana, you don't
die.
You don't die, but you are dragged through your own personal neurosis, inner weaknesses, fears.
If you have a quote overdose.
People say, I feel paranoid.
Yeah.
And usually what they mean is the marijuana is showing all these parts of myself that I don't necessarily want to deal with right now. And that can create a lot of positive change for people. Now, not all the time. A lot of times I've definitely have been paranoid, and the things I've worried about are ridiculous and absurd. And when I sober up, I recognize that. But a lot of times, some of the stuff I'm shown on a heavy dose of marijuana, I come out of that knowing, shit, man, I've got to work on this. Why am I not exercising? I need to exercise more. This is ridiculous. I'm drinking a little too much right now. I need to slow down drinking. That also, on the last podcast, did I talk to you about how I almost died on Valium years and years and years ago? Oh, God. Oh, man. There was a guy came to this party I was at selling Valium at like 12 p.m. at a party. The worst thing you could ever do, sell Valium when everyone's already kind of
Everybody
drunk.
get in your cars now. Go home.
And this was
and how much you been drinking? Oh, perfect, good combo.
And I bought some from him. I don't even know why I would do that. I'm well aware of the fact that you should never, ever, ever in a million years ever take Valium and drink. Never do it. It's what kills everybody. This is the death combo.
Yeah, it is.
So I did it, and I remember
one of the death combos.
One of the death
few
combos.
Of them out there.
I think I took one Valium, and then I'm drinking and like feeling relaxed, but I forgot I'd taken a Valium.
This is the danger of the benzo.
This is how it kills you.
Yeah, you forget. Yeah,
and then I took
Ambien,
another.
Another one does that. You forget.
Yeah.
By the way, not bad. I let me just clarify my thing too. I hate this idea of good drugs and bad drugs. There's no such thing as a good drug and a bad drug. There's this chemical that's neither good nor bad. It just exists out there. We either created it or exist in nature. And then it's the relationship that humans have with the substance that is the issue. And what our individual biology is and what it triggers and whatnot. That's the problem. Like Valium, if you need to have a colonoscopy, Valium and Valium-like drugs,
great.
Really good. If you're just drinking absinthe and partying and about to drive home, really bad.
Death.
Not because Valium's good or bad, because the circumstance and the relationship is bad.
I'll never forget it, man. I was laying in bed that night trying to remember how many of the pills I had taken as I'm passing out.
God.
As I'm passing out. And then I realized, I can't move. Like I'm if I wanted to get up right now, I don't think that I could get up. And this is as I'm fading out into darkness. Geez. And then, I woke up the next day, thank God, and I was alive. But if I had vomited,
that's it.
I would have died.
That's how they die.
Yeah.
That's it. It's
I have a friend who died.
It's called aspiration pneumonia. You don't have to vomit a lot either. Sometimes it just be reflux. Sometimes it can just be a little saliva. And it goes down the wrong tube, gets into your lungs, and all the bacteria that's in your mouth goes into your lungs where it don't belong. You set up a pneumonia, become septic, you go into shock, and you die in about 30 minutes, 60 minutes. It can happen fast.
My God. Yeah, I had a friend, the comedian who got me into stand-up comedy died of a drug overdose. He died of...
Ooh, you might say?
Freddie Soto was his name. Really funny comic. He was like, things were going great for him too. He was like hitting his stride, having all this moment. He was about to get his own show, and he took some pills, went out drinking, slept on his friend's couch. His friend came out the next morning, and Freddie Soto had left the casino, and it was just, we were all just we still are heartbroken by that. But those things are evil. Yeah. Evil.
It's evil in that situation.
Now I'm Nancy Grace.
In that situation. It's not the chemical. The chemical is just a thing of nature.
Dr. Drew, you're so cool, man. This stance that you have is the smartest one to take, which is like, we can't apply morality to these inorganic substances.
Right. It's not moral. People do, on certain chemicals, will do immoral things.
Right.
Not because the substance is immoral.
Right.
It's not. It's just the substance is the substance. That's all.
Yeah, and that's what I like about the way you teach, is because you are not just anti-addiction. It feels like you're anti-victim, because by removing
I'm anti-human suffering. I'm anti-hurting people. And what's interesting to me, I'm clarifying our sort of back and forth too, because I tweeted this. I know you saw it the other day, that I love being around people that help me see the world through a new pair of glasses, and you're one of those people.
Thank you.
And so I'm open to all the stuff you say, and I think it's fascinating. And then I go, but you could hurt somebody. You notice that? I'm always like, but what if? And we were Duncan was on my KBC radio program a few minutes ago with Mike Catherwood, and we talked about pumping mushrooms into horrible world leaders. And Duncan goes, look, he'd have insight, which was going to be the North Korean leader.
Yeah, that's right.
And we said he'd get insight and he'd be happy and he'd realize what he was doing. And I thought, or he'd go darker and he'd get horrible and he'd get suicide.
Yeah, right. Knows? We don't know. That's true.
It's the or that always, because as a physician, you get to see all the unintended biological situations.
That's right. Yeah, that's the thing, man. And you guys do see these things that a lot of us don't see. But I think that, and I think it's so important to balance out, to find the middle path in between both of these perspectives, the Nancy Grace perspective, and then the perspective of the person who thinks that marijuana is the ultimate remedy for all ailments. Right,
because both are extreme and sort of they're ideological rather than assessing. One of my favorite statements is, health is about accepting and perceiving and dealing with reality on reality's terms. Right? Now, you said something on our last pod that no one heard that stayed with me, which was the analogy of the elevator and hallucinogens.
Yes.
Do you use that often, or was that?
Well, that is actually, that analogy is, I believe that came from Ram Dass, who, that was the analogy he gave, because Alpert, if anybody, was Ram Dass, Richard Alpert, pals with Timothy Leary. Great documentary coming out about those two in a few months, actually, being released by Timothy Leary's son, Zach Leary. But anyway, Ram Dass, huge psychedelic advocate, along with Timothy Leary. But then they began to experience this frustration, which was that all the information that they were getting in those super heightened states of consciousness was sort of trickling out of their brains like water out of a bucket with a hole in it. They weren't able to hold on to it all.
I had said to you, these insights might be great, but do they really change anything? I think that's what prompted your analogy or your metaphor.
Which is so the metaphor is that it's compared to an elevator that takes you up to the very top floor of this building where this incredible party's happening. The doors open up. You see this amazing utopian nirvanic situation.
Never really knew was there. You'd never seen it before.
Never even knew it was there. And then the elevator, the thing dings, the doors shut, it comes back down, and suddenly you're screaming at people in traffic again. And that's the problem, is that...
And so that's an analogy for what hallucinogens do.
That's
and of course, and this is, again, my contribution as I went, but what if it doesn't let you off on the first floor and ends up two floors into the basement,
taking you lower,
after that, as the doctor in me always worries about that.
And let's say that it does take you lower. Let's say that you get to go up in a hot air balloon and see the very top of some beautiful mountain, and then the hot air balloon gets blown off course a little bit. You've still seen the top of the mountain, and I think that
there's the independent value of that.
There's an independent value, despite the risk.
And then I asked the question: so how do we get there in a way that we're in control over and we can stay there?
Yeah, that's the big question.
Yeah.
I think it's a lot of things. I think, I am right now really into this type of Buddhism called Vipassana, or insight meditation, which is just the process of sitting still, watching your breath, and being very aware of your thoughts, emotions, and the way your body feels. And it's just this something called mindfulness. It's the practice of mindfulness, which is just watching the way that you act, and the way that you feel, and the way that you think, and becoming aware of the roots of a lot of the emotions that exist in you. Especially for me, like I get angry, and I will have like angry outbursts sometimes. And I thank you for looking perplexed that that happens. It happens.
Just sitting by yourself, anger will come out, or is it like traffic?
Well, no, traffic. It's gotten much better. But I mean, when I was much younger, I was just an angry person. So I would I can remember my printer didn't work one day, and I remember screaming alone in my apartment, breaking my printer, and just a rage. And that's a thing that's inside of me, and that's why psychedelics have been very useful to me. But also insight meditation has been incredibly useful, because now I can sit and I can meditate, and then maybe the dogs will bark right while I'm meditating, and then I can watch the irritation sort of flower inside of me. And then when it's there, in insight meditation, they say, look at it as though you're sitting in a forest and you're getting to watch a rare animal walking out into a clearing. And instead of, as most of us do when anger comes in, we react to it. We go into reactivity mode, which is like maybe you would stop meditating and scream at your dogs, or you would do something to like make them quiet.
So a behavior that amplifies it, really.
Yeah, that's it. So you just watch. Buddha compares anger to a sweet flower with bitter roots, and so we follow the sweetness down into the poisonous roots of the thing.
Do you do that in a kind of feeling way or in an insight way, if that makes sense? In other words, you just follow the feelings, or do you have some sort of specific, that reminds me of some experience or some?
Well, it's called noting is what they, so you can, it's like, it's just, think about an emotion, right? These are these really kind of ambiguous,
these bodily based things you're faintly aware of many times.
Exactly. So it's, what is that thing, right? So this is the practice of taking a microscope and looking into the recurring emotional patterns that are happening inside of you, and really starting to see, because most of the time if you have a negative emotion, you'll try to avoid it. That's when the phone comes out, or that's when you try to move on to the next activity, when some kind of emotional state. We are always in a state of trying to turn our backs on the thing. What happens if we don't turn our backs and zoom in on the thing and see what is this fractal? And it's really an interesting practice, because you start getting deeper into the thing, and it's like, you can visualize what it might look like. You can see it as a color or a form or a shape. And but in Buddhism, the idea is all of those mental forms of analysis of these things are kind of secondary to the very simple observation of the way any emotional state or thought or bodily feeling has a similar pattern, in that it emerges, heightens, dissipates, and goes away.
This is the zone that so much neurobiology and mental health research is going these days. We talked about this a little bit in the Lost podcast, the Unknown podcast. But for me, a lot of that magical stuff you're talking about happens in an interpersonal context. I'm a kind of person that it's very difficult for me to stay with some of those things unless there's a presence or even a back and forth. Maybe it's an amplification or a regulation or something. So to me, I put a lot of emphasis in that space of I think the magic. I'm sort of there's a philosopher that was Buber, big on this. He felt that God existed between people. That was the magic. But they are also people like you that, you say mindfulness, that's a massive field these days. And most people practice it don't do it as well as what you're describing, frankly.
Well, what you're saying, though, is a big part of the practice, too. You're talking about the Sangha, the spiritual community, which is acknowledged in Buddhism, too, and is considered to be as important as meditation. It's the kind of the transference of information that comes between people who are seeking the truth. Because Buddhism, who cares about Buddhism, or who cares about this religion or that religion? What's important is let's encourage each other to get as close to the truth as we can, or as you mentioned earlier, to meeting reality on reality's terms. Let's get to that. Let's get to that together.
People tolerate that. Together. I think I know I'm the kind of person I experience myself others first. Or before I experienced I was thinking about this the other day when we were doing radio. I was thinking, I don't spontaneously come up with much, but when there's another person, I experience myself very vividly. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah. Especially when you resonate with somebody, because that's, you go from, it's the term Gestalt. You've heard that term. Sure. So it's that thing, which is that other thing comes into the room.
That's right. And we now think of it as the right brain. I mean, some people think of it that way, as this holistic, some non-rational, non-verbal, bodily-based, resonant thing that exists between us, and two brains relating. I think I told you last time, I think that's where consciousness comes from. I don't think feral children have consciousness in the way we think of consciousness. I think consciousness emerges in a matrix with other humans, and then you can do something with it by yourself. But really, the consciousness, what I've read and seen of feral children, they're no sense conscious in a way I understand. They have thoughts and they have feelings and emotions and behaviors that emerge from motivations, but I don't get a sense that they're conscious until they enter with other people, and then they sort of develop a little consciousness.
Wow.
It's not as good as if they were born into it, but they get some.
Yeah, I can see that kind of makes sense. You need, well, I mean, clearly, I mean, look at us.
Just language even. I mean, you need that. You need other people to shape that for you.
We need other people. And isolationism usually can't lead anywhere. It's the whole idea. But, one thing to think about if you're somebody who, if you're someone who, the way that you find this truth or the way that you do your spiritual practice is through interaction with other people, is because that's dualism, right? You need another person in the room, right?
Yeah.
So now we're in dualism. But then if you think about it, if you just sit by yourself and you just sort of watch yourself, you're already weirdly with another person, which is
what the Hindus call it the Purusha or Purushka.
Well,
right? Isn't that there's an inner observer?
Well, my understanding of that is there's something called Prakriti, and there's something by the way, I will butcher these terms, and I've been on a rampage of saying like things that are completely off lately on this podcast, so I'll mess it up. But
do people like write you and tell you to straighten you out?
Oh, every time.
Experts.
It's humiliating too because like it's already too late to change it. Like,
but it's good. You refine your expertise.
And I acknowledge it as long as you just acknowledge, like, I was completely wrong about that. So
they know where you're going anyway.
They generally know the idea. But so there's something called Prakriti and there's something called Purusha. So the idea is that, and this is a kind of, in Buddhism, it's called, something like spontaneous co-arising. But Prakriti, I believe, is the term for all of inorganic matter, for the material world, flesh, body, every single thing is Prakriti. Purusha would be the field of consciousness.
It's a spiritual world.
Just that, or what's called the observer state.
Yeah.
So in other words, like here we have this inorganic material, everything that is
not inorganic because we're organic.
We're organic.
Yeah.
So but we're still, we go back to the earth, right?
Yeah.
So the way to put it
is
is
physical.
Right.
Yeah.
Physical. So we're trying to do this process where we sort of keep going backwards until we can't look at ourselves anymore. So we want to go to this complete observer state through all these varieties of spiritual practices until you get to the thing that can't turn around and look at
it's like your awareness of awareness.
That's it.
Yeah.
And then you become pure awareness. And the concept is that is what we really are, and that this entire material universe, including our bodies, is a kind of phenomenological field of a field of phenomena being encapsulated within this consciousness. And so when the idea that I am alone or the idea that I am an individual is actually, interestingly enough, you're already not an individual anymore. It's false.
It's a distortion.
Because you're the thing and the observer simultaneously meeting together, and that's what creates the illusion of self. And the process of Buddhism and a lot of spiritual practices is to dissolve that illusion and merge back into that.
And you feel shit like this when you're high on acid?
Yes, you do.
You feel it, but you don't think it, right?
I think you feel it and you do think it. I think that if on lower doses of acid, you're going to be more prone to think it, and in higher doses of acid, you're going to be more prone to feel it. And definitely, there's a merging that happens at higher doses of LSD and a lot of psychedelics that, in fact, some people say one problem when people have really bad trips, weirdly, is that they haven't taken enough of the hallucinogen and they're still in the
liminal. Makes me nervous.
It should make you nervous. I think it's really important to, man, when I was younger, doing podcasts or just talking to people, I was really gung-ho about the whole thing and just sort of like, everyone just do it, it'll be fine.
Right, but because again, you took a ideological point of view.
Yes.
Like, you're not the boss of me, man, we're going to do this cool thing.
Yeah.
Go do it, but know your risk. Know what it is. Really know what it is.
And that's why we need people like you. That's why people like you are so important, because it grounds. It's finding this like grounding place in between the mad raving of Nancy Grace and the mad raving of
the pro guys.
The guys who are just, everyone do it. I'll put it in your coffee.
Yeah.
Even though I think those guys, that might be a kind of, I can't think of when I've really run into anybody like that. Most people I know are
Timothy Leary was a little that way.
Timothy Leary,
I met him.
No way.
Swear to God. He was on Loveline, of all the things.
What?
Can you imagine? Yeah. I can't remember when it was, probably in the early 90s, probably. It might have been late 80s.
Wow.
And he was old.
Yeah.
He seemed impaired in some interesting way. He couldn't like put headphones on his head. He couldn't figure out how to do it. It was really interesting. but intellectually and command of language and all that kind of stuff seemed like remarkable. And he talked to me about how he had developed the actual phenomenon of group therapy. The group there that he wrote the original papers for, I think he's at Stanford or Cal, on what this new phenomenon, he called it group therapy.
Wow.
He sort of invented it with some other guys.
Not surprising, he invented a lot of stuff.
He was a super bright guy.
Bright guy.
Super nice.
Yeah.
Super nice dude.
Yeah.
I think his son may have been with him that day.
Zach.
I have a faint feeling memory that something like that was going on.
He's incredibly misunderstood, and he's mostly known for, and I think one of his frustrations when he was in prison.
Was he in prison for?
Marijuana, possession of marijuana.
How pathetic is that?
But that was not why he was in prison. He was in prison because he was going around telling everyone, tune in, turn on, drop out. He was because here's what happened. Really, really smart people came into contact with this substance, LSD, and really, really smart people, when they come into contact with this substance, they realize that they are suddenly being given access to a part of their consciousness that formerly was completely unavailable to them. So if these really smart people happen to be psychologists, because there's no stigma against it this time, it's just a drug that Hoffman discovered in Sweden at Sandoz Laboratories, and it was a drug that seem to have a lot of potential for studying psychosis. If we can make ourselves schizophrenic, that's what they thought at first. If we can put ourselves into this state of what at first they thought, is this what schizophrenics experience? Then we can understand how to treat schizophrenia. We can understand how to treat this stuff. But the more that they began to ingest the substance, the more they began to realize, oh, this isn't schizophrenia at all. This is actually taking me into a part of my subconscious that seems to be the storehouse of all mythological symbols that have ever existed, the fountain from which all language emerges.
Well, let's talk about that a little bit, because you started to talk about your cell phone before we got on the pod here. The elephant on your phone.
Oh, Ganesh.
And I wanted to talk a little bit about mythology. And is it time to go there?
Yeah, let's do it.
Tell them the story of the elephant.
Okay, so I'm going to butcher. I think everything that involves me referring to something in the past or a movie or book, I'll just say I'm probably wrong, so look it up. But Ganesh is the son of Shiva, and he was, according to myth, he was positioned to guard his mother's palace. And so he's standing at the gates of his mother's palace, and Shiva, I guess, came home and said, "Hey, step aside, son." And he's like, "I can't. She told me not to let anyone in." And so Shiva, being the god of destruction, the final fate, he represents, the Hindu Trinity, Brahman, Vishnu, Shiva. He represents that's the annihilation that inevitably happens to all things in the universe. That's the elemental force he represents. And so he just decapitates his son. And of course his wife is like, "What the fuck is wrong with you? You just killed our kid." And he's like, "Oh, relax." He takes an elephant head and places it onto his son's neck, and that's Ganesh. That's why Ganesh has an elephant head, and Ganesh is the remover of obstacles, good fortune. Ganesh can shrink himself down, ride around on a mouse. There's a lot of incredible aspects of the story of Ganesh.
But see, I believe that so many of these myths, aside from the fact that they have symbolic veracity, in other words, like there's negative forces and positive forces, but the form they take, it's got to say something about how our brains work.
That's right.
You know what I mean? And just the idea of a father wanting to cut a son's head off. I mean, that's got to be in us somewhere. That's why these myths sustain, right?
Yeah.
They're relatable, and they came out of us. These myths, right?
Yes.
They came out of us. And I think even like the Greek myths, I think back in that day, they were so kind of primitive in terms of their emotional understanding. They felt that emotions came from the outside in, and that the gods, each one of those gods sort of represented a different emotion in a weird way. And that particularly like Athena and stuff, she'd always make people want to fuck. She'd show up and go, "Uh-oh, I'm going to fuck somebody's wife. Uh-oh, Athena's making me do it. Cool. It's her fault, not mine."
Awesome.
Because it was this weird sort of, and children think that way too, like emotions come from the outside in. And I I think about an elephant head. I mean, in a weird way, babies kind of look. The baby elephant heads and baby human in a weird way. I mean, I could see if you were on an acid trip, they would kind of weirdly look this, right? Weirdly. And so, and then probably the Indians had all kinds of interesting experiences with elephants, probably as kids, as being helpful and loving and all this stuff. I could see where they could kind of in a dream sort of thing, sort of mesh these things, right?
Absolutely.
And so I think it's all this weird shit that flies around in our head that you love messing with.
Yes, I do.
And I think that's sort of where myth. I think about Isis and Osiris, the Egyptian myth.
Yeah, can you talk about that a little bit?
It's so bizarre. All I remember is the sister. Somebody cuts the brother's penis off and then puts him in a column, and the sister goes to the ends of the earth to find the penis and finds it in the water or something and puts it back together, except it's not his penis. It's just all this weird penis stuff with the sister and the brother.
A lot of penis stuff everywhere, scattered throughout myth.
Right, and Egypt really. I mean, a lot, the British sort of whitewashed a lot of it, what they found, because didn't meet Victorian standards, but they kind of suppressed a lot of how crazy genital it was all based. Yeah, but that's got to be somewhere.
Well, it's cool you mentioned that, because in Shaivism there is the worship of the lingam, and so there's all these phalluses that I think represent the cock of Shiva that people worship.
Yeah,
which why wouldn't you? Because the cock is the place from which human existence initially emerges from on this planet before it fuses with the
female.
Yeah, that's right. So it is the whole Victorian sentiment where we're terrified of the precursors to human life.
Yeah,
it's very strange. And,
right.
You're also about Carl Jung, of course.
Yes,
I'm sure. So he
sort of was in this zone all the time, right?
Always in that zone.
And I don't really dig the archetype thing. It doesn't help me. It doesn't. You know what I mean? I agree with them. They're sort of out there.
Yeah.
But you kind of keep breaking it down and breaking it down and breaking it down, and it becomes this sort of endless intellectual puzzle for me, as opposed to the feelings connected to these crazy archetypes.
Right.
That interests me, and I would think that your drugs would connect you to some of that too, right?
Absolutely, and especially one thing I've talked about in the podcast is my first real encounter with Christianity happened when I was taking LSD and reading the New Testament when I was in college. I took some acid.
Where'd you go to college?
Warren Wilson College in Asheville, North Carolina, liberal arts school, 600 students, great school. But I was on acid, reading the Book of John.
Oh, Jesus.
And one of the great benefits of LSD is it strips away a lot of your expectations, or a lot of it kind of cleanses the subjective lens that you're looking at things through, the structure of things, so you can kind of look at things for the first time, even though you've seen it your entire life. The Bible, of course.
See, I would say you're looking at it through your right brain, your right holistic, sort of more bodily based, connected.
I think that's. I would say that if they were to do scans of the brain, I bet they would find that.
Yeah, or whatever that equivalent is in the brain. Yeah,
but that's an important. That's a really important thing, because so many times we're all staring at our lives through a kind of polluted, a kind of window that is smudged with all of our ideas of how things work.